I'm Christina Mueller. Hello. And I'm here today with Molly Coen, who is a pastry chef at Carmel Valley Ranch, which is in just outside Carmel in Monterey, and I call that the Central Coast of California. Um, but before we dig in on that, I just want to say huge congratulations because you just won Food Network's The Ultimate Baking Championship.
I did. Hello, everybody. This is crazy. Yes, I just wrapped. I guess we wrapped a while ago, but it's finally public knowledge that I won the show. It's just out of this world. It's awesome.
Yeah. Are there any takeaways from the experience that you want to share?
I think just the experience as a whole, it was my first show that I had ever been on, so I definitely took it day by day, minute by minute. Um, but I think the biggest takeaway for me is like, don't be afraid to follow your dreams. I was so close to not taking the show as an opportunity because a um I had a like it's called Brunch Fest in Colorado. It's like a food show that I competed in every year and I was gonna miss it. And my hotel manager said, Molly, this is so much bigger than a local food show. I think you need to do it. And I said, I don't know. I feel bad. And hindsight's always 2020. I think the biggest takeaway I have is if something feels right in your gut, you should just do it because you never know what the outcome is going to be.
You never know.
You never know.
You started, I want to say, with 11 contestants on the show.
16.
Oh, 16. Okay.
Yeah. Big
Wow.
elimination episode one. We eliminated six contestants episode one.
Holy moly. That is a
Very
lot.
shocking. It was very shocking. Yeah.
Wow. And how long was it in between when you knew that you had won to the day that you were allowed to talk about it?
About 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big secret to hold on to.
Yeah, it was really tough. I was so excited the night that it happened. And then I had to just go back to work 3 days later and pretend like one of my biggest dreams in life had not just come true. I'm sure people could read it all over my face, but I was like, I can't say anything. Sorry. Oh man,
Going to work
crazy.
every day knowing you were a champion, but not being able to talk about it. That's hard.
It's it's tough on your mind, but I think it gives you a sense of confidence that I can't even explain because you just know in yourself that you did it and you're proud of yourself. And I think you just walk a little taller and a little stronger.
Yeah.
And I think that was awesome for me. It was good for me as a person.
I mean, it's only been a short time since you
Hmm.
were able to publicly share the news about your championship, but how has your life changed? I mean, you were doing pastry before.
Hmm.
You have a long history, well, not a very long history, but a long enough history of doing pastry.
Hmm.
Um, where were you before? Where are you now? Where are you going? What's changed? What's shifted? What's
So in the
really
past,
cool?
physically in the past 4 days since the news broke, I've gotten a lot of Instagram followers and my social media is blowing up.
Yeah.
But I think I've gotten a lot of encouragement and love and praise from my peers and from past cooks and past bosses. It's been nice to reconnect with people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there will be a lot more change in the future too, in terms of opportunity and more connections with more people. So I'm really looking forward to what comes of this.
Yeah.
I think the future is bright and it's bright for Carmel Valley Ranch and it's bright for me and it's just kind of all encompassing. So I'm looking forward to it day in and day out.
Day in and day out. Do you want to step us through a little bit of your background and your history, like how you got where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a great story. I decided in seventh grade that I was going to be a pastry chef. And then in eighth grade, I decided I was going to go to Johnson and Wales University. And I did. So I ended up getting a bachelor's in pastry or I guess it's an associate's in baking and pastry and a bachelor's in food service management.
So I
Um,
have to stop you there. So
yeah,
how did you know at 12 that, or 11 even, that you were going to go into pastry?
Yeah, that's a good question because it's not normal. So my older brother really liked to cook when I was younger. He's 3 years older than I am, my older brother Seth. And he had toured Johnson and Wales. We had one in Colorado where I was born, and he really liked it. And then his path kind of just changed and he wanted to do something else. And my mom had kind of invested some gadgets and some other things in him. And so I started kind of playing around with them. I always baked with my grandma growing up, so I always loved to bake. At this time, too, Ace of Cakes and Cake Boss were really big on television, and kids my age would watch it all the time.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make cakes for the rest of my life. I think that's it. I figured it out. And so I was in a class, I had to do, a whole thing on what you're going to do when you grow up and research the hours and the salary and the expected education. And the more that looked into it, I was like, this actually seems like something I could do. It's not 13 years of school, but it's not 2 years of school.
Right.
And I think this could be interesting.
Yeah.
So I did some classes in high school that were culinary related through a program called ProStart. And it got me some scholarship to go to Johnson and Wales. And I remember walking into my freshman year thinking, I've got this. And then I walked into my first class and I was like, I am in over my head. Like, this is crazy. My first class was a baking science class where we basically test every leavening agent, every sugar, every type of flour, and you learn how each individual ingredient works.
Hmm.
And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, if I have to do this with every recipe, like what am I getting myself into? And then
Yeah.
slowly I got to cakes and other fun things.
Yeah.
So then I really liked cakes class and I decided I'm gonna go work at a bakery all summer long. So I went and worked at a bakery in Denver. I'm pretty sure that I worked for free for the whole summer, which I don't know if that was illegal or legal, but no one hold hold me accountable
Back
for
then, no one was
that.
counting.
Nobody was worried about it. I think she was actually thrilled to not pay me for the summer, which is how I would probably feel too.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot, and I did a lot of decorating and a lot of piping and cake decorating and fondant dyeing, and I learned that I don't want to be a pastry, that I don't want to be a cake decorator. That is not where my passion is. 3 months in the shop was good enough for me. And so from then on out, I really kind of just looked into plated desserts and I fell in love with flavor pairings and uh, composed desserts on a plate, different textures and different elements uh, of flavors on a plate coming together
Yeah.
and being all encompassing. So I started as an intern at a hotel in North Carolina. I went to Johnson& Wales in North Carolina and worked there for a few years. And then I worked for the school as a teaching assistant. That was a lot of fun, kind of going back into labs and teaching the other students.
Yep.
And then after I graduated, I took a year off and I decided I'm going to do some traveling because I know that this industry tends to be heavy on the in the kitchen time and not on the out of the kitchen time. So that was lovely. And then I got my first big girl job at the Fig Tree restaurant in North Carolina. And I got a call about 4 weeks before I moved from the current pastry chef. And she said, you might want to sit down. And I said, okay. And she said, I just resigned and we would like to give you the pastry chef position.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
And this is a year out of college. And I had done a lot of plated desserts and a lot of working in the restaurant at the first hotel. So it wasn't lost on me what I was stepping into, but it did feel much bigger than what I was capable of doing. And I just took it one day at a time.
Yeah.
I had 8 desserts on the menu that I changed seasonally and a ton of wine dinners. I got to play around with a lot of stuff. I got to fail quite a bit and I got to learn from those failures and be better. And yeah, I stayed there through COVID. And then about a year after COVID, my best friend and I, who I met in college, decided it was time for us to move home. We just missed family. So we split ways and she went to Pittsburgh and I went to Colorado and I started working at Four Seasons Denver.
Hmm.
And I started as a cook and I worked my way up to pastry chef. And that's where I just left in September.
So you've had some savory side too.
No, I was a pastry cook. So I
Okay.
worked as a pastry cook. I came in as a line level, even coming from being like an executive pastry chef at my last job. I came in as a line cook because I wanted to get into hotels.
Hmm.
again.
Yeah.
That was one of the bigger luxury brand hotels in Denver. So I have my eyes set on luxury hospitality. That's kind of where I like to be.
Hmm.
And I kind of worked my way up through the ranks there. And I was a pastry chef when I left. And then I filmed the show. I worked for 1 week and I moved to Carmel Valley.
Wow. So you did all the filming before I tasted your desserts.
Hmm.
So exciting.
So crazy. I know it's just wild.
And it sounds like that idea of seasonal pastry came at a fairly early stage of your career
Hmm.
where you were working with local ingredients and really getting to know, from an identity standpoint, where you stood with the season.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think coming from living in Colorado to then moving to North Carolina is two very different types of seasonality. Colorado's summer season is quite small. And although there's great things that grow in the summer, you don't really get them until July when the rest of the world is two two-thirds of the way through summer season. So being in North Carolina was great for that. We had a ton of local produce, a ton of outreach to local farmers. And so I really kind of got to play around with a lot of cool things and build the foundation of what I appreciate. And I think that sort of circles all the way back here to Carmel Valley Ranch, where I get to do it, but with literally stuff from our property, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, let's start with, because there's so much to dig in on what you're doing with Carmel Valley Ranch, which if you're
Hmm.
not from California, so if you've been to Carmel, which is the central coast of California, probably an hour and a half maybe from the Bay Area, like Silicon Valley, to the south of
Yeah.
Silicon Valley. But then if you go inland from the coast, that's where Carmel Valley is, and I would say the climate is quite different. It's much warmer, less fog. Um, it's sort of like the difference between, like I call it like, the coast is like broccoli and artichokes, and inland is crops that can tolerate heat, like tomatoes and basil.
Hmm.
So you've got everything right where you are. And coming off the Ultimate Baking Championship, have you transitioned? I heard about a program that you might have launched this week, which might be called Episode Encore.
Hmm.
What's that
Good.
all about?
So we actually launched it week one of the show. So basically, I knew that my last um, challenge was going to be related to a rock and roll after party, and so I kind of wanted to Easter egg that throughout
Mm.
the whole experience for everybody. I don't know if anyone ever caught on, but it kind of went two and two. But the episode encore was the encore to the show, the follow up to what I did, and it was a smaller individual plated dessert version of whatever I made on the show for that week.
Okay.
So yeah, we did it every single week. We changed the menu every week. It was an experience. But we did it and it had great success. And we had a lot of people come back every week just to try that one dessert, which is awesome. And I think going forward, we will episode encore um, maybe every semester, not semester, every quarter,
Yeah.
every season. Yeah. So the first one to go on will be the s'mores dessert, which is from episode 7.
Yeah. And so you were able then to make desserts based on what you were making in the show, but without
Correct.
revealing what was going
Yes.
on in the show.
And I couldn't reveal it until the day after the show aired. So I had to make all of this myself. I couldn't tell my team, I couldn't tell anybody. And then the night right after the show would air, we would put it out to the team and then post it on social media. So it was an interesting way to promote desserts. But it was great fun because you could watch the show Monday night and then come in for dinner Tuesday night and have the exact dessert.
Well, that sounds perfect, actually. Um, so when you're not competing on TV baking competitions, do you spend your time dreaming up seasonal desserts, or like
Mm-hmm.
is that what a pastry chef does with their with their free time?
I think I always have desserts going through my mind. I have multiple notes in my phone, spring, summer, fall, winter, and when something pops in, I just plug it in there and then 6 months before I have to write that menu, I'm reading through there to get past inspiration to write my menus. Is kind of what I've done my whole life. But being here in California is quite interesting because I was just in Denver and now I have all of this amazing produce and access to nuts and things. When I drove here from Colorado, we drove through Salinas and I got to see the the tomatoes and the lettuce and the basil for the first time. And I literally was on my phone, my boyfriend, and I was just like typing, like strawberries grow right here. This is unreal. And basil and tomatoes. And it's pretty cool. I come from a lineage of farmers in Eastern Colorado. My family has a lot of farms, a lot of alfalfa and cow feed and things like that. So I'm used to seeing brown
Yeah.
and grain. And I mean, it's beautiful, but this was a different type of beautiful to be able to see the food that we eat every single day grown, 25 minutes from where I live is it's a treat really. So yeah.
Fewer grain silos, more broccoli. More strawberries, more, yeah, yeah, there's a lot more of the day-to-day produce that grows along where we live out here in California. So did they give you any, I'm wondering, because I live the gluten-free life, I'm wondering if they gave you any gluten-free or vegan challenges on the show. I was able to watch a couple episodes, but not all of them.
Hmm.
Well, I'm wondering, since that's become more central to, restaurant life, like understanding some of these different needs for people, if
Hmm.
that's worked its way into competitions. Because I remember years ago on Top Chef, they would bring on like a vegan chef just as like chuff so that they could move them out as soon as possible. And I think the food world has changed.
They didn't do one, but it would have been really smart because I don't know what some of us would have done. I think it actually could have been really cool,
Yeah.
but that was not a challenge on the show.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think that maybe they should listen to this and take some notes. And maybe if there's a second season, they should do that because I agree with you that the world has completely changed when it comes to dietary restrictions, and you kind of have to be able to appease the masses at all times, no matter what.
Yeah.
You can any day you have a group of eight sit in the restaurant, odds are one of them is gluten free, probably, if
Hmm.
not two, and at least one person doesn't eat dairy. And so you one want everybody to enjoy their experience, and two, as a business owner, you want to be able to sell your product to everybody who sits at the table, right? So it's kind of a catch 22 when you want to be able to appease everybody at the table. So
Do you feel like that's something a little bit more specific to the luxury space, or is that something that you're experiencing as sort of filtering through sort of the broader restaurant economy?
I think it's everywhere. My grandma is celiac and has had gluten um, intolerance her whole life, and she's gonna kill me for saying this, but she loves to go to Olive Garden, and like even Olive Garden, like they have an entire it's a huge Italian restaurant with a lot of wheat and flour, and they're putting out a gluten friendly menu with gluten friendly desserts. You see gluten friendly a lot, not gluten free.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think that this is something that is going into all areas of restaurant and food and beverage. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say the gluten-friendly thing is more around like if you're the majority of people are probably not celiac, but they're experiencing some sort of symptoms.
Hmm.
So, for example, I've been tested twice for the IgG antibody for celiac, and it's come back negative both times, but I
Hmm.
can't properly digest gluten. And that could be a whole other show. We're not going to dig in on gluten-free specifically, but I wanted,
It's interesting though. On the same point though, is I was in middle school and I have terrible ADHD, like probably most chefs do, because that's how we thrive. And my mom put me on a dietary like restriction based diet, and I couldn't have gluten because of the sugar and the processing in my body.
yeah,
And I will say that gluten free has come such a long way in the
such a
past
long
12
way.
years. We used to get the worst brownie mix, and my mom would be like, "You have to, this is what we have to eat." And I'm like, "It tastes like sand. Like, it's so nasty."
I posted a piece to my site recently about gluten-free pasta and just the amazing experience of gluten-free pasta and pizza and in the Bay Area and how it
It's
didn't used to be
amazing.
that way. Yeah.
No, it didn't. It used to be mushy, gross brown rice pasta. And
Yeah.
so I think it's good that it's getting better because now there's more options for all people. And even if you aren't gluten free, you're still enjoying gluten free desserts. And I guarantee you don't even know it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that
Yep.
leads me right to the discussion about your desserts. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
When I visited Carmel Valley Ranch, it was a little bit of time ago, but I don't know if these desserts are still on your menu. We can talk about any dessert.
Hmm.
But I tried the praline tort, the chèvre cheesecake, and the orchard apple.
Okay.
And each of the desserts featured a product that was made at Carmel Valley Ranch from either fruits, vegetables, honey that was
Hmm.
uh, grown or husbanded.
Produced. Yeah, like we have a ton of these, we call them artisans on the property,
Yeah.
from honey to cheese to garden. So, what was your question? What do you want? Like, how did I come up with that?
Yeah. So usually, like, oftentimes when I talk to chefs, like the ingredient is the inspiration. And I think each of those desserts have something different from the garden or from the farm.
Hmm.
But wanted to hear a little bit about your process, about how you, and it doesn't have to be those three desserts. You can pick what you want to talk about, but how the garden sort of or the farm inspires you, and then where you go from like take that through the process of
Yeah.
developing.
I remember when I got off the call, I was filming the show when I signed for this job. And I got off the call, signed for the job, and I started writing. I wrote down all of the different things that were here just from what I could see from the website and what I remembered from my tour. And I said, honey's an option and goat cheese is an option, and honey and goat cheese go together, but also honey's great by itself, and so is goat cheese. And then there's the garden where there's endless options. I tried not to think about it all because it probably would have gotten a little overwhelming. But I arrived in the fall and I said apples are great. Um, Salt, I think, is a really underrated artisan that we have here. So, and then olive oil. Those are the ones that I was most excited about first. And so I just started to kind of flavor pair with those things, making sure that the shining star of each individual dish was the item that came from the property. And that is how I came up. That was my first menu that you have: the orchard apple, the chèvre cheesecake, and the praline tort. And I'm very proud of that menu because I think it does show a bit of the ranch in each one.
Yeah.
I think the apple is the one that hit home the most because I think it was my first month here. I went to all the apple trees. Our farmer said they were going to start going bad, so I plucked all the apples off the trees and I peeled apples and I made apple butter for like 2 days. So much apple butter, and we packed it away and we kept it for winter time so that we could have it all throughout the winter, for the orchard apple. But I really wanted sort of that story of, you know, picking the apple off the tree, coming into the restaurant and biting it, and for it to taste like that. So I
Well,
think
and
that
the dish presents for people who haven't experienced it at the restaurant, it
Mhm.
looks like an apple. The cake looks like an apple on the plate.
So
Complete
we take
little
we
stem.
take it and we put it in the mold, and then we use cocoa velvet spray and ombre from blue to red to orange, white, not white, sorry, yellow, and then a little stem on top. And it comes in a little pile of dirt, like the apple just fell off the tree. And it tastes like a caramel apple pie.
It really does. And it's a gluten-free dessert as well. So,
Mhm.
but it had this amazing loft in it. And I'm wondering, first of all, is there a certain balance of flour that you use to achieve that loft? Or is it all about flax? Or is it all about egg? Or how do you get that?
I
So,
often use just a blend of flours. I've always found the most successful blend is something with rice and then something with like white and brown rice, but also a blend of others as well. I often use a pre-blended mix sometimes. I've had a lot of success with Bob's Red Mill cooking for my grandma. I think it's a great product. Whenever I have to make her birthday cakes, I always use that one, and I've cooked at altitude with it, which I think is the ultimate test to a gluten-free,
mhm.
like one for cup flour. I think it's great. But I also try to do gluten-free baking without using flour at all, because then you're not trying to make something that was already great again with flour that is never going to be wheat flour. And
Right.
I think that that's when the praline cake comes in, because that cake is just naturally gluten free. And honestly, it just tastes like a brownie. And I also use those as brownies too,
Mhm.
because it tastes really great without the flour. So back to your question, I do a little bit of both, but I like a cup for cup that's already kind of manipulated on my behalf,
Yeah,
and then trying to kind of push the limits and create desserts that don't need flour at all. They can just be flourless.
they can be beautiful without that aspect at all.
Yeah, and that's also I haven't done any vegan yet here, but I did some pretty cool ones back in Denver.
Mhm.
That's our next thing on this menu is to get a nice vegan dessert on the menu that, in my words, I don't want people to look at it and say, "Oh, I have to get the vegan dessert." I want someone to read it and say, "Wow, I think that this sounds delicious." Have a few bites. This is so good. Oh, also it's vegan. Oh,
Yeah,
wow. That's my goal. I don't want the dietaries to feel left out, especially at a resort at the number that we do here. Tons of families, tons of kids.
yeah.
It has to be a menu that an adult's going to want for a night out and that mom and dad are going to want to give to their kiddo at dinner at 5:30, to get them to eat their food and let's go, right? So you kind of have to play to all sides of the spectrum, and in that group of people there's the opportunity to have a ton of dietary restrictions.
Are you getting a lot of pushback from clientele? Like, because I know there's a form you fill out before you stay at the hotel. Do people say no butter? Are is there a cow's milk thing that people are pushing back on, or you're finding it mostly that it's gluten free?
I think there's definitely a pushback on dairy, but I've seen it mostly in liquid dairy, not necessarily with cooking dairy. I'm sure it's coming. I think the other thing that I've seen a lot is soy and seed oils are a big one.
Yeah.
Um, but not so much with dairy as a whole. I think in coffees in that aspect, there's a lot less whole milk lattes going out and a whole lot more oat milk and almond milk lattes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when I cook with vegan, I just use coconut milk because it's sort of the best option and, makes sure everybody who's has an allergen is taken care of.
It works. Yeah.
Hmm.
When you're putting together desserts for people with unique dietary needs, well, I guess it's not so unique anymore, but I should say, something specific that they have to keep out of their diet. Do you look for something specific when you're putting that together? Like, I know oftentimes desserts that don't have eggs, you can't get that same loft.
Hmm.
So I know you mentioned like not cooking with gluten-free flours and just eliminating the need for that and just
Hmm.
focusing on the clean ingredient. And is it the same thing when you're looking at vegan?
Again, I'm trying to. It's tough. Fat and egg are huge when it comes to structure in pastry. Mousses and creams, that's pastry.
Hmm.
And butter. I mean, think of a croissant. It's like 50% dough, 50% butter, And the crazy thing is there's people out there making gluten-free vegan croissants
Yeah,
that look and taste great. And thank goodness for those people that
yeah,
are putting in the work and the time to figure out how to do it because it is something that will trickle down to the rest of the industry at some point. But in terms of vegan, again, I'm gonna try and make something that isn't packed with a bunch of additives and chemicals and stuff. I've had a lot of luck subbing oils and butter for coconut oil and cocoa butter, um, vegan butter when you need to use it. But again, trying to keep things clean and find alternative ways to do it. A lot of trial and error, a ton of trial and error with
yeah,
using agar agar versus gelatin, two very different gelling agents that create two very different textures and
right.
seeing how you can manipulate those to make one look like the other.
Yeah, well, even ghee versus butter, you just take out the
Hmm.
the casein and you have a completely different product. So,
Absolutely. It's just, and especially in the baking world, you can't just throw some of this in and throw some of that in. It's down to the gram. And so it's, uh, it's been very interesting, but I have learned a ton about ingredients that I even use on a daily basis. So it's
yeah.
very interesting. Yeah.
Molly, would you say that you have a signature or something that you're known for at this point?
Um, I for a while it was goat cheese cheesecake, and I brought that here since we have the goats. I think I've had a signature at every place that I've worked,
Hmm.
I guess you could say, and I feel as though the apple might become that here for me. In North Carolina, it was definitely goat cheese cheesecake. Um, I would make that all the time, and that was a loved one. In Denver, it was a pistachio raspberry tort. And anybody who has followed me for a while will know exactly what I'm talking about. I actually did it on episode one of the TV show.
Mhm.
We had to recreate a dish that we were most proud of. And so I recreated that. And no spoilers here, but episode one. So that was cool. And then here, I have a feeling it might be the apple, but we'll see once I get through a whole season here at the ranch what that becomes.
Well, and the trends change too, right? Like this
Hmm.
has been so trendy now for I don't even know how long, but
Yeah,
soon we'll be on to some other flavor
it's
profile.
going to be macadamia nut or something crazy. Yeah, so we'll see. I think I'm known for hyper realistic desserts like the smash. I've done uh my chef before me in Denver, we did banana and coconut together. And then we did pumpkin after that, like a pumpkin cheesecake that looked like a pumpkin. So maybe that's more of my signature is taking the tromloid kind of dessert and putting it into a plated dessert option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The shape of the pumpkin or the shape of the apple, and then turning
Hmm.
it to like more of like a sliced dessert as opposed to a shaped dessert. Is that a good translation?
I think the opposite, taking the sliced version and plugging it into the shape and figuring
Ah,
out how to serve that on a plate and not make it just look like a piece of fruit on a plate.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Fun. Well,
Sorry, my really long way of going around what I'm trying to say.
well, and I must admit to not knowing every single pastry term because I tend to live more on the savory side of things. So,
And I live in the pastry world and assume everybody knows what I'm talking about all the
yeah.
time. So it's good for you to say, "Oh, break that down for me a little bit." That's great.
Yeah, a little bit of that. Any final thoughts about, what's coming up or things you're looking forward to or
I'm really looking forward to the summer season here in California. I'm looking forward to seeing yet another season at the ranch. We're headed into our busiest season, so I'm sure there'll be a lot of good things coming out of it. I'm really excited for strawberry season. I cannot wait for Watsonville and strawberries.
yeah,
So
it's just beginning, the
I
cherry.
know. Oh, I drove through last week and I was like, pull over. We have to get all the things. The strawberries were good, but they're gonna get better. I know they are.
Yeah, and I should tell people we're recording this at the end of the first week of May. So
Oh, there
in
you go. Yeah.
California, that's it's the beginning of fog season. So
The
it's how
May,
it
what
rolls.
do they say now here? The May or the gray May gray and the June
June
gloom are
gloom.
upon us.
Yep,
Yes.
yep, here it comes.
Coming from Colorado where we had 300 days of sunshine, that will be an interesting part. I'm looking forward to it. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. Well, thank you, Molly. It's been so
Thank
much fun
you.
having you on the podcast, and I look forward
Yeah.
to facing more of your work. It's everything I've ever had from you has been so special. So,
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a delight to talk to you and kind of revisit the past and talk about the future. So, yeah, it was awesome. Thank you so much.